Congresswoman Dean, thank you so much for being here. And we are, of course, glad that you and all of your colleagues made it out safely after those riots last week. And we have learned, of course, many additional terrifying details, quite frankly, about just how organized this protest was. So I'm hoping you can take us behind the scenes of the conversations that you're having with your colleagues on the Democratic side, inside the Democratic caucus, about how best to proceed with this. But also if you've spoken to any of your Republican colleagues who may be willing to sign on to something that you're doing here, to an impeachment article, and to vote to impeach this president after what happened on Wednesday.
Well, Kasie, thank you for having me. And I was thinking about you and your colleagues. I don't know who from among your colleagues was up in the gallery where I was, but certainly there were press in the gallery when all of this went down. It was an incredibly frightening time, absolutely terrifying. It seemed ungodly, otherworldly, could not be happening. And of course, it was happening. So to you and your colleagues, I hope everybody is safe and working their way through it.
Thank you. Our colleague Haley Talbot was up there with you, and I know that several of you were very helpful to her, so we thank you for that as well. Please go ahead.
In terms of where we go from here, we're in such unprecedented, doesn't even begin to touch it anymore. We have a president of the United States who is so out of control, who incited by his words and his deeds and his actions and those who he put around him, a storming of the Capitol, literally an attack on our democracy, an attack on that precious temple of democracy, an attack on all of us. As we see more and more of this reporting, what you probably understand is those of us who were evacuated from the Capitol, from the gallery, and put in a secure holding, we did not have a television in front of us. So when they told us that some people had breached the Capitol and that they were as close as the rotunda at the time we were evacuated, that we put our gas masks on because tear gas had been deployed, that we get down and seek cover, I thought it was only maybe a handful of people. It wasn't until I got to a television in the ante-room of the room we were being held in that I saw the gravity of this. This president must be held accountable. I signed on immediately, called for the resignation of the president, called for the invocation of the 25th Amendment by Vice President Pence. I still call him to do that. That would be one thing he could do to redeem some part of his public service. We know the president never sought to, never was hoping for public service. He was hoping only for self-service. But Vice President Pence should call and invoke the 25th Amendment. Shy of that, we will impeach this president.
So, Congresswoman, my question, and McConnell has laid out, Mitch McConnell in the Senate, this obviously, if you impeach, it will head over to the Senate. There would be a trial. Jim Clyburn, the number 3 Democrat, suggested perhaps it would be wise to hold those articles, not start a trial, for fear that a trial might overtake the first weeks or months of Joe Biden's incoming administration and potentially serve to derail his agenda or divide the country. What is your opinion? Should, if Democrats, in fact, impeach this president, and the votes do seem to be there to do it, should they send the articles to the Senate right away?
And I failed to answer your question about speaking to Republicans. I did speak to some Republicans at the time we were being held, and to say, do you recognize that many of your colleagues have gone too far? They brought such shame upon themselves. What I love about my caucus is we have extraordinary minds, extraordinary men of history who understand where we have been, and that is Jim Clyburn. He was a former teacher of history. So I very much appreciate his suggestion that one possible wise course would be to hold the articles of impeachment and bring them later. I am of the mind right now, because of the urgency of the moment and the anger that I feel, that we must put down an indelible marker, impeach the president, and swiftly try him in the Senate. That is my hope. I understand the wisdom of the other opportunity, but this is such an extraordinary moment that we must meet it with extraordinary speed and do it well. We can have an impeachment vote. You see us bringing it to the floor very quickly, bypassing our Judiciary Committee. I'm in favor of that. The evidence speaks for itself. America has watched in horror as this president incited insurrection and an attack by people of our country against our country. We can have an efficient fair trial in the Senate. And I hope that the Senate says we have to participate in this. We have to make sure that we shut this down.
So you mentioned your Republican colleagues. One of them said that somebody told them in confidence that they voted to overturn the Electoral College votes because they were afraid for their own personal safety and the safety of their families. What's your response to that decision to vote to overturn the election because of that fear? And do you think that Republicans will join you in impeaching the president if you do it this week?
I hope that we will have Republicans join us. You saw we have already, I think, 205 or so co-sponsors. I was an original co-sponsor early on. I hope Republicans will join us. This is a defining moment. Shame on those who brought up the challenges. As you know, Pennsylvania was challenged, and I had the chance to argue on the floor. Shame on those who brought those challenges, and even greater shame on those who, after the insurrection and the attack on the Capitol, continued the lies and the arguments on the floor, as I witnessed as we were arguing. For people to vote based on their safety, that's simply wrong. We vote based on our oath of office. Surely we're all concerned for our safety. We have no idea how deadly that could have become. And it was deadly. 5 people have lost their lives. A Capitol police officer was slain. I worry for my safety, but that can't change my vote. I have to vote what is correct. I have to vote what is constitutional. So that's a silly excuse for how they cast their votes. I didn't feel safe today, so I voted the wrong way. That's not how it works.
All right, Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, thank you very much for taking some time with us to explain your perspective and your experiences on Wednesday. Again, we're glad you're safe. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kasie.
Ahead here, the debate in both parties over how to hold the president accountable for urging on the mob that stormed